A wealthy businessman once humiliated a hungry stranger outside a restaurant. He believed he would never see that man again. But 5 years later, after losing everything, he walked into a small restaurant and discovered that the stranger he had rejected was now the only person willing to help him. What happened next taught him a lesson that money could never buy. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and stay until the end, because this story may change the way you treat the next stranger you meet. Online. Daniel Carter was a successful businessman. He owned a large company, drove an expensive car, and lived in one of the most beautiful houses in the city. Every morning, Daniel looked at himself in the mirror and felt proud of the man he had become. But his pride did not come only from his hard work. Deep inside, Daniel believed his wealth made him more important than other people. He respected those who were powerful, wealthy, and useful to him. But when he saw someone who was struggling, he often looked away. To Daniel, poverty was always the result of laziness. He never stopped to consider that good people could lose their jobs, their homes, or their health through circumstances beyond their control. One cold and rainy evening, Daniel left an important business meeting. The meeting had gone perfectly. His company had just received a contract worth millions of dollars. Feeling pleased with himself, he decided to celebrate at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. As Daniel approached the entrance, he saw an elderly man standing beneath a small roof outside. The man's clothes were old and wet. His hands were shaking from the cold. When Daniel walked past him, the old man spoke softly. "Excuse me, sir." Daniel stopped but did not look directly at him. The old man continued, "I have not eaten since yesterday. Could you please buy me a small meal? I am not asking for money, just something warm to eat." Daniel looked at the man from head to toe. Then he gave a cold smile. "You look strong enough to work," Daniel said. "People like you should stop begging and take responsibility for their lives." The old man lowered his eyes. "I understand, sir. I hope you have a good evening." But Daniel was not finished. "You should be ashamed of standing outside a place like this," he said. "You are making the customers uncomfortable." Daniel then entered the restaurant without looking back. Inside, he ordered more food than he could finish. When the waiter removed the half-full plates, Daniel never thought about the hungry man outside. To him, the moment was already forgotten. But life had not forgotten. The next evening, Daniel walked through the city looking for temporary work. But every business he visited turned him away. His clothes were no longer expensive. His face looked tired. People passed him without noticing him. As the rain became heavier, Daniel saw a small restaurant at the end of the street. A warm light shone through its windows. Above the door was a simple sign, "Henry's Kitchen. Everyone deserves a warm meal." Daniel entered slowly. The restaurant was nearly empty. A kind-looking man stood behind the counter preparing food. Daniel looked at the menu and then at the few coins in his hand. He did not have enough money for even the cheapest meal. He turned toward the door. "Wait," the owner called. Daniel stopped. "Are you hungry?" Daniel felt embarrassed. "Yes," he whispered, "but I cannot afford anything." The owner studied his face for a few moments. Then he said, "Sit down. I will bring you something." A few minutes later, the owner placed a bowl of hot soup, bread, and a cup of tea in front of him. Daniel began eating. It was the first warm meal he had eaten in several days. When he looked up, he noticed a small scar above the owner's eyebrow. Suddenly, the memory returned. Daniel stopped eating. "You," he said quietly. "We have met before." The owner nodded. "Yes, Daniel, we have." Daniel's face became pale. "You were standing outside that restaurant." "Yes." "And I insulted you." "Yes." Daniel looked down at the table. "Why are you helping me?" The owner sat across from him. "Because I remember what hunger feels like," he replied. Daniel could barely speak. "You should hate me." The owner shook his head. "Hating you would only keep me connected to the worst moment of my life." He then explained what had happened after their first meeting. That rainy evening, a restaurant employee had seen him outside and brought him a meal. The employee also helped him find a place to sleep and introduced him to a charity that offered job training. The old man's name was Henry. Henry had once been a skilled cook, but after caring for his sick wife and losing his home, he had fallen into poverty. With support from strangers, Henry found work in a kitchen. He saved his money, learned how to manage a small business, and eventually opened his own restaurant. But Henry never forgot the night he had been hungry. That was why his restaurant offered free meals to people who could not afford food. Daniel listened silently. One act of kindness had helped Henry rebuild his life. One act of cruelty had remained in Daniel's memory as a source of shame. Henry looked at him and said, "Life changes quickly. The person standing above today may need help tomorrow. That is why we should never use our position to humiliate someone." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "I am sorry," he said. "I thought money made me successful, but I was poor in the ways that mattered most." Henry placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then become rich in those ways now." Henry did more than give Daniel a meal. He offered him temporary work washing dishes and cleaning the restaurant. At first, Daniel felt ashamed. He had once managed hundreds of employees. Now he was cleaning tables and carrying rubbish. But each day he began to change. He watched Henry treat every customer with respect. Henry spoke kindly to homeless people, tired workers, wealthy families, and lonely elderly customers. He treated everyone as if they mattered. Daniel slowly understood that dignity should never depend on someone's bank account, clothes, or position. Months passed. Daniel became a hard-working and humble employee. He apologized to people he had mistreated in the past. He also began helping Henry serve free meals every weekend. Eventually, Daniel found a new job. This time, when he became a manager, he led differently. He listened to his employees. He helped people who were struggling. And he never again judged a person by appearance alone. Years later, Daniel returned to Henry's restaurant with a large donation. But Henry refused to accept all of it. "Keep some of this money," Henry said. "Use it to help someone directly." Daniel smiled. "That is exactly what I plan to do." From that day forward, Daniel quietly paid for meals, education, and emergency housing for people in need. He did not do it to improve his reputation. He did it because he finally understood the power of one human being helping another.